Hi, having some technical issues. Hi, everybody. Charles from GMAT Ninja here. Welcome to episode number 6 of our live 2026 Critical Reasoning series. Today, we're going to cover a subset of GMAT critical reasoning questions that, oddly enough, I don't see discussed very often. These are plan, goal, consequence questions. A lot of variety in the question stem. It's often, hey, which of the following would most indicate that the plan is likely to reach its goal? Some of them are phrased kind of like weekend questions. Some of them are phrased kind of like evaluate the argument questions. So a lot of variety in the question stem, but they all boil down to one thing. Instead of thinking in terms of conclusion support, the way you would on, let's say, a strengthen or weaken question, you're going to think in terms of what's the plan? You want it exactly in the author's words. What is their goal? So it's those two things instead of, let's say, a conclusion or a paradox. It's plan and goal. Believe it or not, guys, it's between 10 and 15% of all GMAT critical reasoning questions are of this type. I think they're under discussed. I think people don't work on them enough who might be struggling a little bit. Nothing that's really crazy here. It's just a question of getting comfortable with the variety in the question stems and making sure that you're really systematic, as always, in how you think about processing the passage. Sometimes people look at them, hallucinate a conclusion, which isn't quite what's going on. It's a plan and a goal. It's not a conclusion exactly. Or they just kind of read through it and go, yeah, I got it. So goal today, practice being systematic, saying, here's the plan, here's the goal, and then take it from there the same way you would almost any other kind of question. Just making sure that you're paying maybe a little bit of extra attention to the specific language in the question stem, because there's a lot of variety there. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and jump in, guys. As always, live group, would love to hear what you're thinking about this question. If you're struggling, by all means, let us know. That's super helpful too. This one's a little bit of a warm-up. I'm not going to melt your face off with this one. I want you to get used to kind of the being systematic with finding a plan and a goal. Then the rest of the questions today will be a lot harder than this one. Go ahead and take a minute. All right, as always, if you need a little more time, take a moment, hit that pause button if you need to. Okay. So again, not melting your face off yet. The questions are going to get a lot harder today. I picked some that I think are pretty nasty. This one, only about a quarter of people miss it. So still not easy, but certainly not the hardest thing on earth. Okay. So what's the plan here? So this real estate developer Centennial Commercial has a plan What exactly in the author's words is the plan? It's convert several unoccupied office buildings it owns, owned already by the company in Sinopolis, into hotels. What's the goal? Maximize revenue from these properties. Now, if you really wanted to, and we can go and do the exercise here, I guess, you can get into the why. I think it is important to understand the reasoning behind it. Why do they think this plan will achieve the goal? Well, here it's a little bit more about, well, hotel room demand is high, right? So demand for hotel rooms is up significantly. Price charged is also up in Sinopolis. Trends are projected to continue for the next few years. Trends projected to continue. Okay, so it makes sense, right? So the plan is, hey, we've got these unoccupied office buildings. We're going to convert them to hotels to maximize revenue from these properties. Why do we think it's going to work? Well, hey, the demand for hotel rooms is up. The price charged for those rooms is up. We think these trends are going to continue. Great, we'll make a bunch of money off of hotel rooms. Wonderful. Question: which of the following would it be most useful for Centennial Commercial to know in evaluating the plan it is considering? For those of you who just popped into this video randomly, we did a whole video on evaluate the argument. It's something we're going to add into this. That's kind of our butt, almost. It's the thing that once you add that in there, it's going to help us figure out whether this is going to make sense, right? Okay. A, whether the population of Sinopolis is expected to grow in the next few years. I mean, sounds kind of nice, but it really doesn't matter. We're talking about hotel rooms, right? Those are typically going to be occupied by people outside of Sinopolis, right? People coming in to visit. Population growth in Sinopolis doesn't really matter as long as hotel room demand is growing. The population itself of the town isn't going to really make any difference, so we can get rid of A pretty easily. B, this one was fairly popular with the group, whether demand for office space in Sinopolis is projected to increase in the near future. The temptation here is to kind of go, well, most of this is about hotels. How important is the office space? Well, if you think about it, what's the goal? Exactly, maximize revenue from these specific properties that are unoccupied office buildings right now. So if there's going to be more demand for office space in Sinopolis over the next few years, then maybe there's going to be significant revenue from these properties if they stay the way they are. So for that reason, this is pretty relevant, right? It'd be really nice to know if there's a hope of a turnaround. Are these buildings going to stay unoccupied forever? Or is there going to be more demand for office space? If there is, then maybe there's plenty of revenue in keeping them as office spaces. So this would be helpful to know. Going to hang on to B. C, whether the increased demand for hotel rooms, if met, is likely to lead to an increase in the demand for other travel-related services. Doesn't matter at all. Sinopolis is only interested in these unoccupied buildings, maximizing revenue specifically from these properties, not maximizing revenue from other travel-related services. So C is irrelevant. If Sinopolis Commercial was a broader travel-related company, then maybe, but the only thing we care about here, maximizing revenue from these specific currently unoccupied office buildings. D, whether demand for hotel rooms, and I think this is another one that was chosen quite a bit by the live group, if I'm not mistaken. Whether demand for hotel rooms has also increased in other cities where Centennial owns office buildings. You know, this is one of those things, and this is going to come up again today in some of the examples I picked out. This business of, well, in some other town, something happened. And I want you to be really careful with those because sometimes they are relevant. Sometimes it does present some evidence that whatever plan we're talking about would achieve its goal. Sometimes it is relevant. Sometimes it isn't. It's a case-by-case thing. You can't be dismissive. It's a bad idea to be dismissive and just say, we don't care about other towns. Or the opposite of that would be to say, well, it worked over there. It's going to work over here. You've got to be a little more critical than that. It's going to be dependent on the exact passage you're looking at. Here, where the demand for hotel rooms is also increased in other cities where Centennial owns office buildings, it's really hard to say why that would be relevant. So hotel room demand might be doing whatever it's doing over there. It doesn't really matter. We know that hotel room demand is increasing here, right? We don't really need to know whether hotel room demand is strong elsewhere. It has no bearing whatsoever on Sinopolis. Hey, hotel room demand could be going down everywhere else. That wouldn't really matter as long as it's going up in Sinopolis. Maybe you could think of Sinopolis as competing with these other places. But in any case, we don't really care what's going on in other places in this particular case, certainly not with hotel demand, because we're already given the fact hotel room demand is up, prices charged are up, trend is predicted to continue. So D is out for that reason. It's not really going to help us figure out whether this would maximize revenue from these specific properties in Sinopolis. E, whether on average hotels that have been created by converting office buildings have fewer guest rooms than hotels that were built as hotels. It doesn't matter whether they're big, whether they're small, as long as they maximize revenue. doesn't really matter whether these particular buildings become smaller hotels than purpose-built hotels. So E is out. B is our winner. That was your warm-up. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Okay. And apologies today, by the way, guys. I'm fighting a little cold, so my voice is a little funky. If you're new to my videos, my voice doesn't normally sound like this. I don't normally sound quite this much like a frog. If you want to watch some videos where I don't sound like a frog, check out our free video series. Free videos, if you click on this link or check the QR code out, you'll get to a page that has our full, complete, free GMAT course, video-based. There's also some stuff in there that will help you introspect a little bit about what your biggest problems are and get to the right resources quickly. And again, you'll hear people in those videos who do not sound like frogs. Okay, with that. Next question. Go ahead and take a minute, guys. And again, these are getting tougher. No more messing around. These are all, I don't know, 650, 700 level type questions, maybe a little bit harder. But again, I want you to be really systematic about plan, goal, make sure you understand how they got to that, what the support is for it, and then be really careful with the question stems. Go ahead and take a moment. Right, as always, pause if you need to. Live group, getting some disagreement. I like it. And again, tough question for most people. Okay, so we've got this whole situation where there's these fire alarm boxes, and the vast majority of fire alarms are prank calls made anonymously from these fire alarm boxes. So what's the plan? Plan is we're going to remove those boxes. Why? What's the purpose of it? We want to reduce the number of prank calls without hampering people's ability to report fires. Part of what makes this question a little tough, I think, for some people, or at least a characteristic that can make anything a little bit tough. That goal kind of has two parts to it, right? So it's reducing the number of prank calls, but it's doing so without hampering people's ability to report actual fires, right? And I think sometimes it's a little bit harder to kind of think in terms of strengthening, weakening, supporting in this case, when you have sort of a double-barreled thing going on. So a little bit more in terms of the moving parts. But again, be really disciplined about that language. I can already see from the live group the answer choices you guys are picking. I know you missed or didn't quite pay enough attention to some piece of something that I already have up on the board. We'll get into that in a minute. So why is this? So why do they think this is going to be the case? Well, I'm not necessarily going to write all this out here. But the vast majority of prank calls come from these alarm boxes. How exactly did they phrase that here? Prank calls made anonymously from the boxes. Or false. Vast majority of false alarms are these prank calls made from the boxes. And virtually everybody has a private telephone. How has a private phone. Notice it doesn't say cell phone. How old do you think this question is? It's older than most of you guys. A private telephone. Ooh, high tech. We've got homes with phones in them that are connected in. Okay, so there's your support, right? So the vast majority of the false alarms, they're prank calls that are reported from these alarm boxes. Most people have private phones anyway. We don't need these alarm boxes anymore. Therefore, our plan, remove the boxes. We're going to reduce the number of prank calls without hampering people to report fires. Question, again, if you're in the habit of looking at a question stem and labeling it quickly and going, it's this, be a little extra careful with these kinds of questions with plans and goals because they're going to shake up the language a little bit. Which of the following most strongly supports the claim that the proposal will have the announced effect? So we're looking for something that's going to strengthen the idea that this plan will achieve this specific effect. Okay. A. The fire department traces all alarm calls made from private phones and records where they came from. This sounds like the kind of thing you might dismiss and go, well, who cares about tracing calls? But when you think about what's going on here, what's our goal? Reduce the number of prank calls, again, without reducing the ability to report actual fires. Well, the vast majority of false alarms or prank calls made, I left that out of here, but made anonymously from these boxes, right? Well, let's think about it. What happens? So if before the problem was people are making prank calls anonymously, that's most of our false alarms are anonymous calls from these boxes. But now the fire department can trace all the calls made from private telephone, record where they come from. What are they going to do? Are they going to show up at your house if you make a prank call? I don't know, but your prank calls aren't anonymous anymore. That's what A is saying. And if part of what's going on here, vast majority of false alarms or prank calls made anonymously from these boxes, well, hey, now they can't be anonymous anymore. That sounds like it's going to support it. So I'm going to hang on to A. We've eliminated the ability for these prank calls to be made anonymously. That sounds like a reason why you would actually expect the number of prank calls to go down. B, maintaining the fire alarm boxes costs Springfield approximately $5 million annually. Again, is this a reason to do this plan? Yes, it is. Is it a reason why the plan will have the announced effect? No, irrelevant. What's the announced effect? Reduce prank calls without hampering the ability to report fires. We don't care about the budget. In real life, we care about the budget. This is GMAT critical reasoning. Don't care about real life. What we're saying here has no effect, has no bearing at all on the effect that we care about. So B is out. Even though obviously in the real world, that's a great reason to do this, but it doesn't matter here. C, a telephone call can provide the fire department with more information about the nature and size of a fire than can an alarm placed from an alarm box. Again, this sounds like a perfectly good reason to do this, right? We don't want you using the alarm boxes because you can make a better report of the fire itself from a private telephone, right? It's a good reason to do it, much like B, it's a good reason to do it. Does it achieve our goal? The goal is to reduce the number of prank calls without hampering people's ability to report fires. What C is saying is, well, you can do a better job of reporting the fires, but it has nothing to do with the prank calls, which is our primary goal. We want to reduce the prank calls without hurting the ability to report fires. We're not looking for doing a better job of reporting fires. We're looking for reducing the prank calls. C is a great reason for them to make this change, so is B, but it's not relevant to the key part of our goal. So what's the announced effect? Reduce the number of prank calls without hurting the ability to report fires. C doesn't help us with that. D, responding to a false alarm significantly reduces the fire department's capacity for responding to fires. Again, really good reason to do it. Really good reason to do it. False alarms, bad. What's our goal? Reduce prank calls. That's it. That's it. Without reducing the ability to report fires. So D is out. It's a good reason to do it, but it doesn't support the intended effect. E, on any given day, a significant percentage of the public telephones in Springfield are out of service. If you're under the age of like 35, you're probably like, what the heck is a public telephone? Old payphone. Doesn't matter. We're talking about private telephones here anyway, so this is irrelevant. If the passage said that people are going to use public telephones to report these fires instead of the call boxes, that'd be one thing, but that's not it. Everyone has access to a private telephone. Public telephones aren't going to affect this at all. And our winner is A. All right. Okay. You guys are pretty quiet today in the live group. Not seeing a lot of chatter. But yeah, let's just go ahead to the next one then. If you guys are doing well. I like this one. Geese. Geese are awesome, sort of. Gonna take a moment. All right, as always, if you need a little more time, hit that pause button. And live group, this is great. Seeing some good chatter here that really helps me because I'm seeing which ones you guys are struggling to eliminate. So this is super helpful. Some general questions here before we dive in. Yeah, quarantine. That was a good time in those COVID days. Can't believe it's already been 6 years. And another general question: will there be a session next Wednesday? Yes, there will. For those of you watching live, next Wednesday, same time, 8:30 a.m. U.S. Pacific time, other times in other places. The plan is to do 2 more videos in this critical reasoning series. Next week's will be on kind of some oddities. So fill in the blank, accept questions, and other questions that really don't fit neatly into other categories. GMAT can get very creative sometimes with the question stems. I've addressed a lot of the variations in videos like today's. But we'll tackle a few oddities. So come join us for that next Wednesday. I believe the Wednesday after that is MBA Spotlight. So sign up for that if you have not already. And then we'll pick up the following week with, I think, one final critical reasoning video on the nastiest critical reasoning questions. All that said, whether you're watching live or not live, if there's something in particular you want to see, go over to the video description and you can click over to the thread on GMAT Club. Let us know if there's anything in particular you'd like to see. I say my plan is 2 more videos. If there's demand for more, we'll do more. And then after we finish up the critical reasoning series, we'll have a couple of other things happening on GMAT Ninja Wednesdays. Some podcast premieres that will also be happening on YouTube as well as on podcast. So some unique topics, a little bit of an experiment in terms of the format. So I'll have some of those, and then we'll likely mix in some quant data insights starting this summer in June. Okay, on to this question. Ooh, yeah, another good question. And we will tackle the geese in just a moment here. Yeah, good question. This is part of what I found interesting preparing for this particular video. Again, one of the things I said in the introduction was this is a question type. I'm going to take the geese off the screen for a second. We'll come back to the geese and the dogs and the foxes. As I was preparing for this, I realized that there is no filter for these on GMAT Club, and part of it is that often these question stems look like strengthen, weaken, evaluate the argument. So they tend to kind of end up in there. So there actually is no tag for these because it's almost about the organization of the passage and not a question stem type exactly. The question stems have a lot of variety. So there's no tag for these on GMAT Club. But again, if you open up the official guide, it's 10 to 15% of questions. It's quite a bit, in the official guides, online question bank from GMAT. When you look at official questions, you will get plenty of reps on these. I wouldn't worry about drilling these in particular. If you're watching this video, that probably gives you enough reps to kind of know what you're doing. And then if you go do a set of 20 out of the official guides, you're probably going to see 2 of these, maybe even 3. So it's probably enough practice for you. But yeah, no tag for these on GMAT Club, again, because they don't necessarily look like a distinct question type, but they are. Okay. Good question. Yeah, yes and no. So are we strength? So in this particular question, I'll pop it back on the screen here. So in this question, cast the most serious doubt on the proposals, on the prospects for success of the corporation's plan. Is this a weakened question? Logically, sure. But the really important thing two really important things to be aware of. I don't want you lumping these in automatically with, let's say, weakened questions. The reason is, number one, you're going to process the passage a little bit differently. If you're a little bit too hasty in saying, here's my conclusion, you're missing something, because there isn't exactly one conclusion. There's a plan and there's a goal. You want to be really, really clean about keeping those separate, getting them exactly in the author's language. So in that sense, they're distinct. From there, are we weakening? Sure. But again, they put a lot of variety into the question stems themselves, not the passage. I mean, the passage too, but the question stems themselves. So just be careful. I don't think you get anything from just automatically labeling these. Oh, it's a weaken. Well, sure, you're weakening something, but what exactly are you weakening? It's different than a conventional weaken question where you're weakening a conclusion. Here, you're kind of figuring out what the disconnect might be between the plan and the goal, or trying to find something that is going to weaken the prospects for achieving that goal. So I do want you to approach them a little bit differently. Okay. Great questions, you guys. And thank you so much for this. Glad you guys are enjoying it. Please invite your friends. Love having people here live. I'm going to keep doing GMAT Ninja Wednesdays until you guys get tired of me. So please bring your friends who are studying. All right. Geese, dogs, all that stuff. What's the plan? Well, we're going to import a large number of herding dogs to keep the geese away from the helicopter. Okay, and what's the goal? And notice I'm being really, really bordering on anal. I'm not this way in real life. You can ask my wife. what exactly is the goal? The phrase they use here is solve the problem. To solve the problem. Okay, that's our goal. We're going to solve the problem. What exactly is the problem? Well, the problem is that geese that gather at the pond create a hazard for executives who use the corporate helicopter. You know, I know I'm broken record in saying, pay attention to the specific language. Don't paraphrase. Their words are yours. Make sure it's their words, passage's words, not yours. This is one of those cases where when I see people miss this question, look, the language is easy, right? It's not a language problem. These are all really, I mean, the answer choices are really simple sentences, right? My 8-year-old could understand this argument. I don't know if she'd get it right, but she would understand the language, right? It's not hard to read. But create a hazard. You know, I assume what they mean, I would assume in real life, I'll put it this way, in real life, I would assume what they mean is that the geese are preventing the helicopter from taking off. The geese get caught in the helicopter blades and might cause the helicopters to fall. But it doesn't say that. It just says create a hazard. That's all it says. What kind of hazard? Maybe the geese are going up to the executives and trying to peck their eyes out. Maybe the geese are going up to the executives and stealing their wallets. I don't know what kind of hazard they are. Maybe it's too much poop on the runway. I don't know. It doesn't say, it just says creates a hazard. I think that's interesting. It's an interesting choice of words there. And again, it's another case where chances are that if you miss this question, that's part of why, because you might be imagining a specific hazard and they don't give you one. They just say the geese create a hazard. What exactly is the hazard? I don't know, but they're a hazard. Well, all right. Okay. So which of the following, if a realistic possibility, would cast the most serious doubt on the prospects of success for the corporation's plan? A, the dogs will form an uncontrollable pack. Okay, well, a couple ways of looking at this. This sounds like a problem to me if this is true. Because if this is true, well, maybe they don't do a good job of chasing away the geese. Maybe they go do their own thing. So that's one problem. The other one is an uncontrollable pack of dogs sounds scary to me. I don't know about you. Maybe if they're like little chihuahuas, although chihuahuas actually bite people at a higher rate than any other type of dog. I think the most frequent kinds of dog bites are chihuahuas. They're this big and they have Napoleon complexes. They're crazy, nasty teeth, little guys. Anyway, but dogs forming an uncontrollable pack. Well, that sounds like a hazard. So are we solving the problem of the hazard? Well, this casts doubt on it, right? Because if it's an uncontrollable pack, they might not chase away the geese, number one. Number two, to me, it sounds like an uncontrollable pack of dogs. That's a hazard, potentially. Do I love A? I don't love A, because I'm a little murky. I'm like, well, what do you mean by uncontrollable pack? It's not clear to me. It's not 100% clear to me what problem it causes. I can think of two potential problems. Am I totally sold? I'm not. What I would definitely not do here is pick A and move on, even if I was short on time. I'm hanging on to A. It makes sense. I can see how it casts doubt on this, but I'm not 100% convinced. That's why I always say, don't fall in love with answer choices, because what if there's something better? Wouldn't shock me here on this question. B, the dogs will require training to learn to herd the geese. Well, that sucks. So it's going to take a little bit more time, but that has nothing to do with it. If they'll require some training, but then they're going to solve the problem, this doesn't cast doubt on their ability to solve the problem. It just maybe delays it. That's it. So B is out. That's not going to cast doubt on it. C, the dogs will frighten away foxes that prey on old and sick geese. See, a lot of people picking this. It sounds kind of tempting, because what it suggests is you won't have as much culling of the herd of geese, right? So there will be, all else being equal, more geese, because the foxes won't eat the sick and old ones. Well, relevant. So is that terrible? No, but you still have the rest of the geese, right? So, okay, so maybe there's some sick and old geese that aren't causing trouble, but it's not obvious to me that, like, again, we're not clear about what the hazard is. But you could get rid of the old and sick geese in the herd of geese. There's probably still plenty of other geese. Maybe they were the ones more likely to cause problems because they're more energetically crashing helicopters. The young, fit geese are maybe more likely to crash a helicopter, peck a corporate executive's eyes out, or whatever it is they're doing. I think losing a few old and sick geese, I don't think that matters, or gaining a few old and sick geese because the foxes aren't preying on them. That's a pretty weak one. To me, it looks like A is going to cast a lot more doubt on this. What are we more afraid of? A pack of geese that has more old and sick geese in it, or a pack of uncontrollable dogs? Uncontrollable dogs sound like the bigger hazard, especially if they're not even chasing away the geese, which is possible. So you've got my sympathies if you picked C. There's a little something to it. But when you think about it, if the only thing that's going to happen if C is true is that, hey, we get the dogs in, and then there's more old and sick geese in the herd of geese, I don't think that's a big deal. So C is out. A is definitely stronger to me than that. D, it will be necessary to keep the dogs in quarantine for 30 days after importing them. So, okay, that's good. Again, much like B, it's going to delay. It doesn't change their ability to solve the problem fundamentally. Can they chase away the geese, reduce the hazard? Okay, maybe they do it on day 31, but they can still solve the problem eventually. E, some of the geese will move to the pond of another corporation to avoid being herded by the dogs. I mean, that sounds maybe like a strengthener, if anything, right? Because if you're, I don't know, if you're Coke, aren't you totally happy to have the geese go crash Pepsi's helicopter? So E's not a problem. Certainly not going to cast down on it. And you might not love A. And I think they deliberately in this question leave a little bit to the imagination. And again, it's very deliberate. And I think that's interesting. But when you really think about, hey, what might these hazards be without pinning yourself to anything in particular? Yeah, A is going to cast the most doubt on the idea that this hazard, generic hazard, will be removed. Okay. Seeing all kinds of stuff in the live group. Thank you for this, guys. I think most of this. That's funny. Do you think MBA schools might be open to the prospects of training geese to steal wallets? No, MBA schools themselves are not into stealing wallets. That's more of a corporate executive thing. Oh, just kidding. All right, guys. Question number 4 coming at you. I think we're going to make it through 5 today at this pace. All right, I'll shut my mouth. Go ahead and take a moment. was a great live group. Great conversation going on there. Really fun to see. Okay. So actually, got a couple general questions in here I'll address after we go through this question. A couple good things popping up. And again, live group, feel free to ask me anything. It's part of why we do these live, partly so you can see me say dumb things by accident because there's no editing going on. And partly because, yeah, feel free to ask me anything as long as it's even reasonably on topic. I will do my best to address it. Okay. Got a moderate large city. It's designing its central downtown area. Considering a plan. What's the plan? Reduce the number of lanes for automobiles and trucks and increase the lanes for pedestrians and bicycles. And what's the goal? Well, the goal is to attract more workers and shoppers to downtown businesses. Now we can argue that that's the whole goal, right? And the rest of this is kind of support. That's fine. It doesn't really change anything a whole lot. But attract more workers and shoppers to downtown businesses by making downtown easier to reach and more pleasant to move around in. So here's the mechanism that they think is going to make this happen. So it's going to make downtown easier to reach, more pleasant to move around in. End result, though, the end goal is to attract more workers and shoppers to downtown businesses. So which of the following would most strongly support that prediction that it will achieve its goal? So yeah, it's a strengthener, but again, it's a little bit different than one where you're strengthening a conclusion. You're trying to strengthen the idea that this goal is going to actually come to fruition. Okay, A. People who make a habit of walking or bicycling whenever feasible derive significant health benefits from doing so. Good for them. That's wonderful. Has nothing to do with the downtown businesses. Really easy one to eliminate. Again, might be a good reason to do this, but it has nothing to do with the specific goal. B, most people who prefer to shop at suburban malls instead of downtown urban areas do so because parking is easier and cheaper at the former. That's fine. It has absolutely nothing to do with this goal, because that might be the case that's why people choose those malls. Parking is easier. None of this has anything to do with parking, by the way. This is just making lanes available for cars versus bicycles and pedestrians. So B is out. C, in other moderately sized cities, so like this one, this is a moderately sized city, where measures were taken to make downtowns more accessible for walkers and cyclists. Okay, so moderately sized, similar cities that did a similar thing, downtown businesses began to thrive. All right, does that support the idea that this is going to work here? I don't see why not. Do we know why this city is different from other moderately sized cities? No. I mean, it's something in favor of doing this, right? Hey, it's worked elsewhere. Is there a reason why this is a different circumstance? Not necessarily. I'm going to hang on to C. And again, do I love it? I don't love it. You don't have to love it. You're looking for the best of them. Notice, again, if you ever, and by the way, from the live group, I've seen in all of these sessions, I haven't seen any of you guys actually do this, so that makes me happy. I see it a lot on GMAT Club, on YouTube comments. I see it from our students we work with one-on-one, where they'll say, right, but this one isn't perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. The question is almost always has the word most in it, right? Which of the following would most strongly support? So I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for better than the other four. That's it. Plausible that C, does C help? Does it support it? Yeah. Is it great? We can argue, but it supports it a lot. I don't know. Let's see if D and E support it. Maybe one of them is going to be better. I don't know. Okay, I do know. I've seen the question before. D, if the proposed lane restrictions on drivers are rigorously enforced, people will more likely be attracted to downtown businesses than otherwise would be. Real life. If I'm the city planner, I'm the mayor of this town. You don't want me to be mayor of your town. If I were mayor of this town, and somebody said this, and for some reason knew this was true, yeah, this is a reason why it's going to achieve its goal. Here's the problem. This is not reality. This is the GMAT. It's critical reasoning. Don't let reality get in the way. If proposed lane restrictions on drivers are rigorously enforced, more people will be attracted to downtown businesses than otherwise would be, meaning if they were not rigorously enforced. Okay, what's the plan? Reduce the number of lanes for automobiles and trucks, increase lanes available for bicyclists and pedestrians. Nothing about enforcement. It's not rigorously enforce the lanes. That's all D is about. D is entirely about rigorous enforcement. The lane restrictions are rigorously enforced. More people will be attracted to downtown businesses than they otherwise would be without rigorous enforcement. The plan isn't to rigorously enforce the lanes. It's just reduce the lanes. Nothing about rigorous enforcement. That is really subtle. It's easy to miss. Again, real life, I might be picking D, actually. Not real life. The plan is just reducing the lanes. The plan has nothing to do with rigorous enforcement, which is entirely what D is about. So for that reason, D is out. And if you pick D, yeah, that's what makes this one tough. This is a hard question. This is not an easy one by any means. I mean, this is about 40% of people get this one wrong. Usually they pick D, and that's why. E, most people who own and frequently ride bicycles for recreational purposes live at a significant distance from downtown areas. That's, if anything, going to weaken it. So E is out and C is our winner. All right. No. Bad idea. You don't want me to be mayor. Although I would kind of enjoy, like, do I get to like go around all the restaurants and get like photo ops and eat a lot of food? I'd be great with that. There were some general questions coming in here that I really liked, and now I'm having a hard time finding them. Oh, awesome, Tanya. Yeah, love it. Thank you so much. That's what we do this for. Love to hear it. Good things happen to you guys. Please let me know, because I like to hear it even if I don't get to meet you guys in person. A couple general questions that were way up here. There's some questions about error log. Those I'm not going to cover here. There's a question, I believe, about GMAT Club questions. Yeah, this is a really good question, and I think relevant. Again, are we talking about, is this a video on difficulty levels? No, but I think as I, you do these videos, and I'm always trying to give you context as best I can. Here's how hard these are, because if you're getting pummeled by the questions in this video, I don't want you to think the sky is falling, because the first one, probably kind of mid-level. The other four we're doing, I'll probably get to one more here. The other four, these are tough. I mean, these are tough ones. And I think you can get a great verbal score. I mean, you can get well into the 80s struggling with some of the questions in this video. And what I want you to take away as a process for being better at them, I want you to improve. I expect very few people watching this to have an easy time with all 5 questions. So if a lot of, I think what kind of helps you give a compass for kind of how your progress is and what to get out of these videos is about difficulty. Yeah, difficulty levels. I would be careful with, here's the broad problem, is that you can open up the official guides and those difficulty levels aren't perfectly accurate either. Some of them, backing up a step, when you take the actual exam, we talk about difficulty levels of questions on the exam. It's determined empirically. So that is entirely determined statistically based on which questions you guys as test takers get right and wrong. That's what determines difficulty. So when we say, miss an easy question, it's going to hurt your score, there's a lot of rigor that goes into determining what's an easy question and what's a hard question. It's not somebody just going, oh, this looks easy, this looks hard. It's all determined empirically, and there's a whole science behind it. And if you have insomnia, give me a call, I'll give you a long, rambling speech about the 3-parameter logistic model. You'll fall right asleep. So in what we would like to see out of the official guides is difficulty levels that are based on the same data as the actual exam. Unfortunately, some of what you see in the official guides, those difficulty levels, sometimes they are based on the actual data and sometimes they aren't, unfortunately. So they're not perfect. GMAT Club, right now, the current algorithm on GMAT Club, it's based on a mixture of the length of time people take to do it and how many people get it wrong. It's a combination of those 2 factors. On the actual exam, it's based just on whether you got it right and wrong. So it's based on difficulty is just about percentage of people getting it right, essentially. So take them with a grain of salt always. Keep in mind that it's not under exam conditions. Like, you're doing these in the timers, doing whatever. So they're not perfect. I think they're pretty good. They give you a sense. Personally, I pay more attention to the percentage of people that get it wrong than I do that difficulty level that says easy, medium, hard, 605 to 655 or whatever. Personally, I prefer to look at the percentage wrong. But on GMAT Club, yes, determined with real data, but it's a mix of length of time people take and how many people get it wrong. This was the other question I was looking for. Yes, biggest thing, when you're this close to your exam, this is going to sound really dumb. Please get some sleep. Take care of your body, take care of your brain. You studied a lot. Great to see you here a week or so away from your exam. But as you get within that last week or two, it's much more about, again, you can focus on some weaknesses. Don't overdo it. I want you taking care of your body and mind. It's not a test that's about cramming more into your head. If this is an organic chemistry exam or a macroeconomics test where you've got to memorize a bunch of stuff, which you shouldn't be doing in a macro class anyway, but let's just say you're taking a class and you've got to memorize things, different. You study until the last second, and we can argue that that's good. GMAT, it's about how sharply you read, how clean your process is, how well you can stay calm under pressure, how well you can focus. It's a reasoning test. So it's not, hey, regurgitate math formulas. It's how well can you use the things you know to solve more complicated problems. So take care of your body, take care of your mind. So have a good time a little bit. Go have dinner with some friends and family that you like to see. Get some sleep, get some exercise, eat really well. Yep, study a little bit. I'm not saying don't study. I'm saying biggest thing you can do in your last week, take care of your body and mind, because you at peak performance, physically and mentally, is going to score a lot higher than you kind of worn out from studying too much. That's the biggest thing. Good luck to you. Let us know what happens, please. Okay. Yeah. Oh, good question. And we will get to one more here. Ricky, great question. I have a couple thoughts here. It depends on where, the biggest thing is that it depends on where you're getting these difficulty levels from. And that was kind of the question I think Neha asked about where the difficulty levels come from. There really aren't practice materials that have perfect difficulty levels. It doesn't exist. All of the materials out there with difficulty levels, they're flawed in some way, they're imperfect. So sometimes you're gonna look at easy questions that really aren't easy. There's a reading comprehension passage, for example. I think it's listed as easy in the official guide, Winters versus the United States. That thing is nasty. Everybody gets crushed by it. It's hard, not medium. It's hard and it's listed as easy. There's mistakes like that in the book. Don't stress about it. That's one answer. The other, so one answer is maybe you're looking at things that are kind of mislabeled. The second thing is, it's possible you're overthinking the easy ones, especially on verbal. One of the things that has come up a couple times today, hey, don't let reality get in the middle of your GMAT. You could overthink a lot of these. And sometimes when I see people who are, again, regardless of whether it's verbal or something else, missing easy ones, getting hard ones right, sometimes it's sloppiness. If the easier ones feel harder to you, sometimes it is the tendency to overthink. And where does that come from? Your process isn't clean enough. So the thing I keep saying over and over and over, and you guys are probably tired of it, although a remarkable number of you are still here watching live, is it's precision of language. I'm not hallucinating what the problem might be with the geese and the dogs. It just says hazard. That's all it says, right? And I'm always harping on their words, not yours, their words, not yours. Get the exact goal, get the exact plan, get the exact conclusion, the exact paradox. And again, we can say similar things on every other question type, including quant data insights. Sometimes it's that, sometimes it's a lack of systematicness that kind of causes you to see ghosts in easy questions. It could be that as well. Hope that helps a little bit. Okay. Let me do one last question here, and then I'll do my best to kind of pick up on some of these questions that are here that are kind of more general ones. Okay. Last one. I think it's a really good one. It's a really hard one. Couldn't take a moment. Oops. And as always, pause if you need to. Okay, I'm gonna go through this one pretty quickly. Only got about 7 minutes left. Part of why I picked on this one, the plan's clear enough, right? So modify the income tax structure to induce individual taxpayers to put a larger portion of their incomes into retirement savings account. Why do we want to do this? You can spin your wheel on a bunch of stuff in the passage, right? They talk about businesses, they're suffering, there's a lack of money available for these loans. So to help the businesses, here's what we're going to do, because as there's more money deposited in the income in the retirement accounts, more money is available to borrowers like businesses who need it. But then you read the question itself, and they actually give you the goal on a silver platter. It's in the question, not in the passage. It's kind of in the passage too, but it's right there in the question. It's really nice of them. It happens. Now, this is still a tough question for most people. I'm seeing the live group do great with it, but still a really tough question. 40% plus typically miss it. So which the following, if true, raises the most serious doubt regarding the effectiveness of the plan to do what? Increase the amount of money available for development loans for businesses. Hey, here's your purpose. Here's your goal. They gave it to you in the question. Really nice of them. Okay. So is it to help businesses in general? Not exactly, no. It's to increase the amount of money available specifically for development loans for businesses. All right. Let's head through these. And then I'll do my best to get to a couple of the general questions popping up if we have time at the end. When levels of personal retirement savings increase, consumer borrowing always increases correspondingly. Well, if that's true, you've added more money that's available to borrow from in the savings account, but then it gets borrowed somewhere else. So we're not actually increasing the amount of money available to businesses or anybody else for borrowing if A is true. This definitely casts doubt on this, because the amount of money available, it's not going to change. B, the increased tax revenue the government will receive as a result of the business expansion would not offset the loss in personal and revenue from personal income taxes, blah, blah, blah. Don't care about government revenues at all. That has nothing to do with this. This is all about specifically increasing the amount of money available for businesses for development loans. See, even with tax incentives, some people will choose not to increase their levels of retirement savings. This is the sort of thing, again, we see a lot. It's come up in other episodes within this very same series. Some people won't behave the way you want them to behave. Doesn't matter in this case, right? So just because some people aren't going to increase their retirement savings, the question is, overall, if this change in policy is going to increase the amount in these savings accounts, then fine. And there might be some people who don't participate, but enough people do over there, it's still going to have an overall effect. Doesn't really matter if a few people over there are not actually behaving the way you want them to behave. Or is the overall pile of money still going up? It might be, regardless of some people not increasing the amount of their savings. So C is out. D, bankers generally will not continue to lend money to businesses whose prospective earnings. Great. So yeah, there's going to be some selectivity in lending. Not an issue here. What's the issue? What's our goal? Increase the amount of money available, not dispersed, just available. So it doesn't really matter to us how banks hand that money out and who gets it and who doesn't. E, the modified tax structure would give all taxpayers the same tax savings for a given increase in their retirement savings. Sure, but that has nothing to do with whether the effect happens, which is more overall money getting saved and more overall money available to borrowers. So E is out, A is our winner. All right. Yeah, good question here. And again, about 3 minutes and I'll bail on you guys here. I want you to be careful. Sometimes I see people trying to turn, and the instinct's not a bad one, Swetha, and it's an excellent question. What does some mean? Some is deliberately vague, right? Some could be 3 people out of 1 million. Some could be, I don't know, 900,000 out of 1 million, right? It's deliberately vague. Most is greater than 50%. I think that's fair to say, right? Most means a majority, but I'd be a little bit careful not to turn critical reasoning into math. You see that sometimes in explanations on, let's say, GMAT Club. I'd be a little bit careful there and just think about, okay, what does it mean for some people not to increase their retirement savings as a result of the policy? Well, as long as there still are more people who are doing it, or other people, doesn't have to be more people. As long as there are people who are doing it and the overall pile of money grows, it doesn't really matter if some people, whatever that might mean, are not behaving the way we want to. And some is a deliberately ambiguous phrase. Might mean a couple, might mean a ton. It's not all and it's not none. It's somewhere in between, deliberately vague. But I always want you to kind of push that a little bit and go, okay, well, what does that imply? If some people aren't doing it, does that invalidate the idea that enough people are doing it to have the desired effect in this case? Sure. There's a question in here somewhere about official guides. So I'll say this about the new official guides. I have the exact number somewhere, 204, I think, new questions across all 4 books. So that's Quant Guide, Verbal Guide, Data Insights Guide, Official Guide. No questions removed, a little more than 200 added. So up to you if you think it's worth purchasing the bundle for an extra 200 plus official questions. And again, there's always a full analysis up on GMAT Club pretty soon after the release. So that should be coming up in a couple weeks if it's not already there. And this depends on you guys in part. Yes, we are almost certainly doing a 2026 live Quantum Data Insights series. What exactly that looks like, if there's anything you want to see, come on into the thread. So it's in the video description, also up here in the chat at the beginning for today. GMAT Ninja Wednesdays, something you want to see, let us know. I will do my best to provide whatever you guys are into seeing, but we will almost certainly do some quant, some data insights in addition to the podcast that's coming up that I'm pretty excited about. 8 episodes at minimum. So whatever you guys want to see, just let me know and we will do our best. All right, we are at the end of the hour, so I'm going to call it here. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. Live group in particular, thank you for all the energy today. Really appreciate it. Apologies for my froggy voice. It will be better next week. Next week, oddities, accept, fill in the blank questions. Week after that, MBA Spotlight. I'll be doing a couple of panels there, including an event with GMAC. So if you are watching this in May or June 2026, come join us MBA Spotlight. Make sure you get registered. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have fun studying.